taking the time to talk with me about the legend of Ochi here today.
Yeah.
I want to first start off about the development of this screenplay, because you have to create this whole culture, this whole backstory behind it as well. Emily, when you get this script, is that detail there on the page? Is that something that's like screaming out to you as like someone who's like poured every ounce of his soul into this, essentially?
The screenplay smelt. It was very, very original and very different in a way that I couldn't quite determine, but it immediately, I don't know about other actors, but appealed to an actor like me. I've always had a fantasy about playing a character who keeps a mouse under their costume, because I had a friend who did that when I was a kid. But this was as close to that as, you know, you learn about the character first from the description of the dash in her car, which is full of litter and sweet paper wrappers and a dead bird, and her wooden hand is on the wheel. She's smoking a cigarette and listening to Italian rock. And
so there's like this attention to detail, basically.
I'm in. That sounds cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so for you then, Isaiah, like when you're writing this thing, Dark Crystal, Never-Ending Story, I could think of like all these movies that, you know, deal with puppets and like harken back to films that, quite frankly, we just don't see that much anymore nowadays.
Yeah.
Was that predominantly on your mind while wriing this, or was it
0% were any of those films on my mind? No, it was just, start with, I wanted to tell a story about a kid and an animal trying to communicate because of feelings I have about communication. And then I go, okay, well, how do I approach that? What's the animal? Okay, the animal's a primate. The animal's like, you know, an elusive, undiscovered species that might be actually believable. And then how do I set that in a world that is mysterious but feels real? And then, discovering the Carpathian Mountains and traveling to Romania and realizing that the world is all there. It's just all there. And, you know, I didn't invent the world. Like, this is what Transylvania is like.
Right.
And I only transposed it to a fantasy island just to give myself some breathing room and not be looking over my shoulder worried that I, don't have the legitimacy to tell the story of Romanian culture, which I don't. But if it's a fantasy island that's like a collage of that, that's just enough removed of it, then I could do that.
It's almost like when Peter Jackson brought us to New Zealand and said, hey, this is Middle Earth. And it's it's right there, guys, you know?
Yeah, and so, there are plenty of films that were deeply influential on this movie, but they weren't necessarily the nostalgic creature features, like I think, I saw Paris, Texas and E.T. at the same time in my life at 25. I hadn't seen E.T. till then, and to me, these movies are like, they're approaching the same feeling of, being in a kid's perspective of divorce and pain within a family, and finding two different deeply subjective ways of telling that story in poetic ways. And I wanted this film to be as grounded as Paris, Texas or There Will Be Blood, but be accessible to innocence and childlike feeling. And so it's coming from just what do I want to see, not like what was good when I was a boy or something. Yeah.
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what we want to see and what we get to see in this is we get to see Emily Watson and Willem Dafoe act opposite each other, which take me to whether it was on set or if you were up there, like you said, in Romania, up in the mountains, take me to the scene that day between you two in the third act, because just two powerhouses like yourselves getting the chance to share the screen together, work opposite each other. I have to imagine for you that's exhilarating. For you, you're probably like behind the camera thinking, oh my God, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was really, going into bat with somebody like that who's just, he's an icon, and watching him do what he does, which is he kind of lands the tone of something with these incredibly subtle dials, sending it one way or the other, with incredible truthfulness and vulnerability, and with high comic ridiculousness sort of cut through it. It was thrilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, seeing Emily and Willem, two of the greatest actors who've ever lived, get to cut up 4 pages of dialogue. I just sit back and watch it, and we all do. The whole crew is watching theater, and we all basically have to do nothing. And it was such a deeply refreshing contrast to the rest of the shooting of the movie, which was like willing this fantasy into existence through like physical labor of like a puppet and suit performers and kids in the mountains with animals, and everything about it's hard, but you put Willem and Emily and let them cook, and everything about it's easy, at least for me.
Yeah.
They get to do all the work.
I had the best one. I got to beat him up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking to what you're saying about like shooting on location, I love the visual style of this movie so much.
You.
I love the accentuation of the colors. I love the fantasy elements that you brought into it as well to make it feel grounded, but also something that feels like it's not of this world. However, I remember when the trailer dropped, you had to like publicly like come forward and say, "Hey guys, this is not like AI produced or anything like that. Like this is something that we made with our own hands, with our own sweat, our own tears."
Yeah.
So in this day and age where everybody is constantly like asking, is this AI? Is this something that was not made by human hands? Like, where are you at today now that the film has been seen by people and it's been obviously recepted at this point in terms of just what happened in that moment? Like, what do you think caused people to go, this is something that we think is AI?
I think partly it was just, this being my first film and it being like really visually audacious. So they didn't have a reference point. This wasn't like my established style, my 8th film. No one would think Wes Anderson's making AI films, obviously, because they know what his style is. So there was that, and then I think it's that in the trailer there was a number of giant kind of painterly matte painted shots that are using a combination of like really amazing locations but also matte paintings to adjust the weather in the world. And then we took all of that and printed it to film and rescanned it. And because of that, I think the only reference point anyone had for something that looked that painted, but also that filmic, like where there's all of the image characteristics of a 1970s film, is in AI, because you can actually type into Midjourney and say 70s film aesthetic, like, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And so nobody had seen anything like that except in AI, but it was, probably some weird, distorted, shitty thing. And so, a few people early that morning, I remember I woke up at like 7 a.m. the day the trailer dropped, and I looked at my phone, and there was already someone with, 7,000 likes saying, "This is AI, I can't believe A24 would do this." And I'm like, I just worked for 6 years to make the most, handcrafted film ever, so it's quite an eye roll moment. And I just wanted to be direct and say, no, this is what we did. And I don't have any interest in using AI in my films because it's just not fun. Like, I'm doing this because I'm following my intuition about what's fun. Drawing is fun, sculpting is fun, building stuff in the mountains is fun, shooting with your friends is fun. And AI is like a reduction of the work. It's almost like people would rather have had done the work than do the work, but really doing the work is the point.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And the work shows. It showed in your earlier work, whether it was in shorts or in music videos.
Yeah.
I knew you were capable of producing this, so it's up there on the screen.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you, so much. And best of luck to both of you in what it is you do next.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Yeah, take care.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.